Welcome to today's session on project planning for beginners. In this video, we'll discuss what project planning is, why it's essential, and what can happen if we don't plan well. Trust me, planning can save you from a lot of headaches, whether it's time, money, or even your reputation. So why is planning so important? Well, poor planning can lead to project delays, budget overruns, or missed opportunities. You could end up losing valuable resources like your time, energy, or even the trust of your stakeholders. In extreme cases, poor planning can result in the failure of an entire project or business. But don't worry, we're here to help you avoid that. Let's start with the basics. Every project has a start date and an end date. Between these 2 points, you'll have a series of deliverables, whether that's a product, a service, or even information. Your job as a project manager is to make sure everything is delivered on time and within budget. Stick around because in this video, we'll break down the key components of project planning so you can hit the ground running. Now that you understand why planning is essential, let's dive into the key components. Think of project planning as a blueprint. The major elements you need to cover are the what, who, when, and how. What? First, what are you delivering? Is it a product, service, or information? This defines your scope, which is the foundation of your project. Who? Next. Who's doing the work? You'll need to identify your team and their roles. Are you working with a small team or coordinating with multiple departments? Understanding your human resources is crucial for the success of the project. When? The when is all about timelines. When does the project start? When does it end? And when are specific deliverables due? This is where you create a project schedule to keep everything on track. How? Finally, the how refers to the process. How will the work be done? This covers the methodology and tools you'll use to achieve your project goals. Planning these key elements can save you from unexpected surprises later. Next, we'll focus on how to break down your deliverables into manageable tasks. Now let's talk about deliverables and how to break them down into manageable tasks. Let's say your project is building a house. The entire house is your end deliverable, but there are smaller deliverables along the way. Foundation. The first deliverable might be the foundation. You need to ask yourself, what tasks are needed to complete the foundation? Pouring concrete, checking the site, and obtaining necessary permits could be part of this phase. Framing. Next comes the framing of the house. You break this down further into tasks like measuring, cutting, and assembling materials. Roofing. Once the framing is done, you'll move to the roof. Again, break it down into manageable steps like installing the trusses and adding shingles. Breaking down your deliverables this way helps you see exactly what needs to be done, who will do it, and how long it will take. This is essential for creating a timeline and assigning resources efficiently. Once you've broken down your deliverables, the next step is estimating how long each task will take and who will do it. This is where your project timeline and resource planning come into play. Timeline creation. Let's say it takes 2 weeks to pour the foundation. Add that to your project timeline. Next, estimate the time for framing, roofing, and so on. Resource allocation. Now, think about your team. Who's going to do what? Maybe you have a crew that specializes in framing, while another team handles the roofing. Assign the right people to the right tasks. Your goal here is to make sure each task is completed on time and by the right people. Misestimating either time or resources can lead to delays or budget issues. Once you have a clear timeline and your resources assigned, you're ready to move on to cost estimation. Now that you've got your tasks, timelines, and resources in place, it's time to estimate your costs and set your budget. You don't want any surprises at the end of the project. Direct costs. Start with direct costs, like labor and materials. How much will it cost to buy the materials needed for framing or to pay the crew for their time? Indirect costs. Next, think about indirect costs. These could include things like utilities, equipment rentals, or even administrative costs. Contingency. Always include a contingency in your budget. This is your buffer for unexpected expenses. Typically, a 10% contingency is a good rule of thumb. By planning your costs early, you'll ensure the project stays within budget and you'll be prepared for any financial surprises. That wraps up our series on project planning for beginners. By following these steps, defining your scope, breaking down deliverables, planning your timeline and resources, and estimating costs, you'll set yourself up for project success. Thanks for watching.